Tak. Máme spuštěný webinar. So, if you hear me, we are live, so we can start the webinar. Can you hear me, Bob?
Yes, I can. Should we start right now, or should we give it another minute or two?
Only have many attendees waiting for us, so let's go ahead. Yeah.
So we can start.
Let's start.
Excellent, excellent. So good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be with you today, and welcome to our series of top use cases, how to supercharge your business with artificial intelligence and machine learning. Today's webinar is about NLP, natural language processing, and understanding your customers at scale with AI. As many organizations are eager to understand better their customers, what services or products they are looking for, what is the decision-making process when they are buying. When a lead comes in, is it passed on to the right department? Or what happens when a customer is complaining about the product via email or chat? Also, we'll learn how to do text mining for fraud detection and get insights into what are the customers talking about. All these and many other topics will be covered by the webinar today, suited for organizations with call centers who are using omni-channel topic detection, chat, mails, voice, and those who are undergoing digital transformations or want to do better marketing of their products and their services. Today, I have with me Adam, who is our NLP lead and senior data scientist, and he will be leading today's webinar with me. What we have is a quick introduction ahead of us, and then we will explore the number of the use cases as well. So we are formed into 5 tribes. We have more than 130 data scientists and data science engineers, and those 5 tribes are looking after fintech in retail, technology, innovation, and media, display and video ads. Our success would not be without our cloud partners such as Microsoft, AWS, and our key partner Databricks. And the year before, we received a Rising Star Award from Deloitte as one of the fastest growing companies in Central Eastern Europe in artificial intelligence and machine learning. As for our customers, I've highlighted those ones for financial services, industry, telco, media, entertainment, and in retail and e-commerce and FMCG. And those ones who have the blue dot, if you wish, with the NLP, those ones is where we have done existing projects with natural language processing. So these are Cooperativa, which is part of the Vienna Insurance Group, Generali, Česká pojišťovna, and Česká spořitelna as part of the Erste Group. Equally also in the e-commerce and in the retail environment with Auto Hroch and Job Number One. Now, before I hand over to Adam, let us do a quick survey about where you are now, and I will now ask Jan to help me with a survey where you can actually put how many data scientists are there in your company, and you can click on where you are. So we'll give it another 2-3 seconds before we finish the survey. We have 21 people attending, and the responses are coming in. I have about 60% now. A few more. And we are almost ready. Here we go. So a majority of the respondents, 38%, have.
You can see the same question double, and that's a little mistake, and just ignore it.
Okay, so shall we end the voting? I'll click the end voting now. We share results. Results have been shown. And so thanks very much for participating in the survey. It gives us a little bit of info about where we are. And right now, let me invite Adam to our presentation, and wish everyone a wonderful afternoon within our presentation. Thanks a lot. Adam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bob, for the introduction. It is also a pleasure for me to be with you today. And as announced, today we're going to be talking about understanding your customers at scale with AI. More specifically, how to use NLP in your business to improve your processes and take it to the next level. So first of all, let's start with the fundamentals. What is NLP? So here I copied a quote from Wikipedia, which describes it as a field or subfield of linguistics, computer science, and AI that's concerned with interactions between computers and human language. In more plain words, I could describe it as automatic processing of and mining of text, or we could say these are some methods, algorithms, software that allows us to gain insight from text algorithmically, so in some automatic manner. The second very important question for you is, why is NLP relevant to you? So it is quite likely that your business already has a big amount of text data, especially in communication with customers and many more areas. And this data can essentially improve your business. It can be used in more ways than it's probably used today in many avenues, which we're going to explore today. And we're going to show you possibilities of what can be done with this data. To go over the possible sources of text data, like the first one are calls. So every company that has a call center can record their calls, and these calls can be transcribed using speech-to-text technology, which are models that are able to transcribe human speech, as the title suggests, to text. This can then be analyzed similarly to other sources of text, such as chats on the web, which are getting more and more common to have your own chatbot and knowledge base on your website. Also, more traditionally, email communication, which in some businesses can be very prevalent, in others less so. And last but not least, we have documents. And these can be both documents, let's say, in image form, so scanned documents, scanned IDs, agreements, etc. But these can also be documents in electronic form. Yeah, so, for example, textual PDFs or Word documents, etc. So this is some quick overview of what kind of data we're going to be talking about today, mining essentially. And with that, let us get to a second survey where we would like to hear your input, your experience. So essentially the question is if you already tried to solve challenges in your business with NLP. And thank you, Honza, for starting the survey. And let's give it a moment for your answers to come in. Okay, we have around 60% of the votes. Let's give it a few more moments. Okay, last chance before I end the voting. Okay, so it seems that there is a nice mix. Okay, you should see the results now. There's a nice mix between people who actually haven't used NLP yet and people who use it regularly or even tried. So this is a good place to be then. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. So next we will go over a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. So the specific use cases or topics that NLP can help you with. First of them is lead prioritization, which is essentially a way to give a priority to certain customers that have higher potential conversion rate. Second topic is going to be automatic document extraction. So essentially taking IDs or scanned documents and processing them automatically, reading out the values automatically, and essentially automating some parts of the process that traditionally only humans could do. Third area is going to be more specific to, let's say, insurance industry, and it's fraud detection, so detecting fraudulent claims from text and other information. The next topic essentially is topic detection, which is a broad term that describes algorithms that try to understand the critical topics that are important for your business. Every business has different topics that are relevant and important to track, and topic detection algorithms allow you to essentially track this in your calls, emails, etc. Another common area is sentiment analysis, where you can analyze based on what the customer says, how they interact, whether they are happy or unhappy with their products and services. And last but not least, many of these use cases, which can be used on calls, require speech-to-text transcriptions. And also these transcripts in themselves can be used, for example, for back reference. When future interactions are had with the customer, the agent can, for example, read the previous conversation. So after going over these topics and areas, we would be interested to hear from you which one are the most interesting to you. So let's get to the third questionnaire that we have, third and last. So please, Honza, put it on. So we'll give a moment for your votes to come in again. Okay, we have around 70% of the answers now. Almost everyone has answered. So let's give it a few more moments and we can end the voting. Okay. So let's look at these results. It seems that there is quite a balanced interest in many of the topics. Topic detection seems to be the favorite. So we're glad to see that all the topics we prepared today are relevant. Okay. So now that we've done a quick introduction of what we're going to be talking about, let's delve into the specific use cases. The way that I chose to prepare today is by telling a story of a company and one of their customers, and essentially demonstrate all the different pain points and solutions that NLP can bring to your business on this one particular example. Essentially, we chose an insurance company as the case study, let's say, but many of the techniques, as you can guess, can be applied in any business with text. So this is just one particular example. Our insurance company is nicely named Insurance Incorporated. It has over 1 million customers, thousands, hundreds of thousands emails every month, tens of thousands of calls every month in the call center, around 50 call center agents. And our customer, the hero of our journey, is named Marcus. He's 30 years old, he's married, has 2 kids, and recently bought a car. And this brings us to the first use case where Marcus has chatted on the website. He was interested in insuring his car, and he chatted on the website with the chatbot. They exchanged a couple of messages, and he left his phone number for later reference. And with this, he got placed into CRM, where also all the other leads are present. And for the agents who call these leads, the key question for them is essentially who to call first. And with that, we get to the first use case, which is probability to buy from text data. So essentially trying to estimate how likely it is that the customer will buy your product based on some previous conversations. So the data sources in here are essentially all communication that you had with the customer. So in our case with Marcus, it's chat conversations, but in case your customer also had some previous email communication or calls with your call center, all this data can be leveraged in what's called a propensity model. It's essentially possible to take all your historical data about customers in the past, their communication, and whether or not they have bought the product that you're interested in, essentially here. And it's possible to train a model that then estimates and is able to predict based on conversations with the customer and the text data, how likely is the person to buy the product. So here we have a quick basic example. So Evelyn is another person in the CRM, but she talked in the chat about things like maybe in the future. Those are some of the keywords. So the model assigned her quite low probability. The next other person in the CRM, let's say he's Jeff. He's had keywords such as not interested next year that appeared in his chat. So the model also assigned low probability. But our hero Marcus mentioned things like from February a new car, and the model gave him a high probability. One thing to mention here is that propensity models can be used also for grading cross-sell and upsell leads, and they cannot be used only for prioritizing high potential clients. They can also be used for essentially not calling low potential clients. So there are 2 cases. Either you have too many leads to call, or you can call all your leads and you can save money by not calling the lowest, the ones with the lowest potential conversion rate. So let's get back to Marcus's story. He got a call from the Insurance Incorporated, from the call center, and he decided to go ahead and buy this insurance. So the next step for Marcus was onboarding and sending his documents. So he took a photo of his ID card, he took a photo of the technical documentation of the car and all the other agreements that the insurance requires, and he sent them over email to the company. But he was not the only one. That day, 200 other people sent their information, so it might have took a while before his documents were processed, because transcribing lots of documents and IDs manually, it's a lot of work. And to shorten Marcus's waiting time, there are 2 options. Either it's possible to hire more people to do this, or it's possible to automate it. which in this day and age is very well possible. So for this, let's look at the use case of document extraction. Here, the input data is personal documents, previous contracts, IDs, as we mentioned before, and they go into some sort of document reader, which is a pipeline that can first of all read out the values from the picture and say, okay, here in this place, as you can see on the images, the rectangles, so those are like the places where the OCR can read out. It first identifies here is text, then it reads out the values, but it's only a part of the solution, because not only you need to read out the values, you also need to identify the values which are important. And that's where NLP is used for so-called named entity recognition, which is essentially produces this sort of output. It allows us to take any document and extract some named entities, like here, date of birth, location, ID number. It's important to mention here that this named entity recognition can be applied for extracting any type of entity that is consistent across documents. It can also be from free text. So not only structured documents like forms, it can also be for extracting some specific information, even from people's emails, etc. So this is quite a powerful technology that we have a lot of experience working with. So to get to our continue with our story, Marcus essentially successfully sent his documents, and he got his insurance, and he was happily driving in his new car for a few months, but nobody is perfect, and he got into a minor accident. So he now wants to file his first claim with Insurance Incorporated. He took the photo of the damage of the car and all the other things that were necessary to send, and he put them into an email and sent it. And was waiting essentially for a long time to get his money paid out, his insurance paid out. So where is the possible problem? Here in this case, what we want to demonstrate is essentially that one of the reasons why it can take quite a long time is that in insurance, not all people have good intentions, and some of them try to commit fraud and try to create fictive agreements and then send false claims. And it's pretty difficult to identify. It can be challenging to identify if the claim is valid or if it's fraudulent. So again, one way to speed up this process and make Marcus's time waiting for his money shorter is by hiring more people, and the other is by automating the process to some degree. So the third use case that we want to show here is fraud detection in insurance claims. Essentially, we take the text of the claim, so the text of the email that the person sends, and we analyze it in some ways. So the first simple way can be detection of repeating patterns. Sometimes the fraudsters can send a batch of emails, a batch of fraudulent claims that are very similar in text, in structure. So this can be easier to detect, but some frauds can be more difficult or more challenging to spot. For that, we can employ learning-based predictive methods. You can essentially imagine it that you have some historical data, for example, last 10 years of your claims, and you have those ones that you identified as fraud. And it's possible to train a model then to look at like what keywords, what phrases, what sentences are typical of the fraudulent claims, and do some scoring based around that. So if this model is tuned well, it is possible essentially to prioritize or pre-select pre-select claims for further inspection by people. And it's quite possible that Markus's claim wouldn't get scored with a high fraud probability score. So it's possible that this process would make his experience better. So this is for fraud detection in insurance. And for the purposes of our story and for showcasing all the different things we can offer, let's assume that it took a really long time and Markus was really unhappy. So he decided to call up the call center and give feedback. It was an unlucky day for him because the agent that he called up with, that he talked with, had a really bad day. The day perhaps he had an argument with his wife, and they had an argument. And this can be a challenging thing for business because these interactions happen. You cannot prevent it. Nobody is perfect, and it's very hard to detect it unless like the team leader or the agent in call center hears it outright. It's basically impossible to detect, and it's quite possible that the customer here, Markus, would decide to leave the company just for this single interaction because they had very bad experience. And with this issue, another automatic NLP technique can be used, which is called sentiment analysis. More broadly, it tries to estimate customer sentiment, which can mean multiple things. But here in this case, it can be applied to detect problematic calls like the one we described. Once again, it can work with all types of data that we mentioned before, call transcripts, emails, and chats. It just depends on what is most relevant to your business. And it can go into a sentiment analysis model, which typically produces one of three labels, whether the interaction was positive or the comment was positive, negative, or neutral. When this model is trained properly, it can be used for churn prevention. So if we detect that some customer is very unhappy and is writing really angry messages, it makes a lot of sense to call them, ask them what happened and what you can do for them to change their mind about your company. Another way where this makes sense is, or another way to look at it is that sentiment analysis can give you some sort of net promoter score proxy, which can essentially be used for similar purposes, but you can also use it to track the sentiment of your customers over time, for example. One caveat to mention here is that there are many sentiment analysis solutions that are available off the shelf, essentially pre-trained models that you can rent and just send the text to the model and get back the sentiment scores. In our experience, these can be very hard to make work, and they have very limited. They essentially don't work on a typical business use case because it depends a lot on the type of data the sentiment analysis model was trained on. Typically, it's trained on the reviews where the customer gives outright score, like the NPS form, feedback form. But when, for example, would you try to apply this model to the detection of problematic calls, which we have experience with, like with this very use case, they break down because those are two completely different domains. So we are capable to fine-tune or tailor the sentiment analysis model to your specific use case and essentially bring the value in your domain. So with that, we have finished Markus's story, but there is one more important use case that we have mentioned in the beginning, which didn't quite fit. So let us introduce another actor. So we are here on another timeline. We have the same actors in the company, So it's the same insurance company, but here let's focus on Joyce, who is a call center manager in Insurance Incorporated. She has around 7 team leaders and, as mentioned, 50 call center agents, which she has to manage on a daily basis, which is already a bit challenging. But on top of that, she has to plan capacities, she has to report to the board, and she would like to generally have an idea what's going on, what are the topics that are people interested in. And this can be quite challenging because with 50 agents, you can have around 2,000 calls a day, or for the 50,000 a month. That amounts about 2,000 calls a day. And what are people talking about? How does it evolve over time? One ideal way would be if the agents were capable of writing down this information in some form and saving it about the customer, like noticing personal preferences, whether what's essentially what was the content of the call, and they would leave a note. And in most call centers, agents leave notes, but these notes have notoriously very low quality because the agents have a very stressful and difficult job, high-paced, and they don't have much time between each call. They can have only a couple of seconds potentially. So it's very hard for them to leave consistent notes, especially when it doesn't improve their pay directly. They already have a lot on their hands. So for this, once again, we can use natural language processing in the form of topic detection. It applies to the same types of data: call transcripts, emails, chat conversations, and it can be passed to some topic detection model. There are multiple ways to do this, which we can tailor to your use case. But in general, you can detect things like cross-sell leads. So one of the use cases that we encountered is that in service call centers, sometimes customers say that they are really interested in some other product. But since they are talking with a service agent, that agent is not directly rewarded for passing on leads. So this very, very potent lead can be lost. So this is one area where topic detection can be used, or topic detection methods. Another area would be summaries. So, for example, summaries of the data of the calls. Okay, I see already first question. I will address all the questions in a few minutes after we wrap up. So another case is for summaries for salespeople. For example, when the call center is just one part of the process, it's quite possible that it's hard to pass information to further people down the pipeline. So it can be that the person starts talking with the call center agent and then goes on, for example, to a branch company and talks in person. And for the person at the branch company, it can be difficult to know what they talked about with the agent, because exactly there are no notes and there can be only breadcrumbs of information, like where the customer was routed, etc. And they might need to repeat their whole story. So this is where topic detection can be quite useful. Another case, for example, are service topics. So let's say something breaks down for the customer and they write to email. This can be detected and they can receive, for example, automatic response from a knowledge base. So it's sorry, seems my internet is a bit acting up, so I hope the connection is still stable. But to finish, these are some of the cases where topic detection can be quite useful. It can also be used to detect the intent in chatbot. So similarly to email, when somebody writes with their problem and it's a common one, it's possible to automatically respond. This we can do as well. So in general, this can give you idea what topics who call to your call center or write to you are interested in. And to get back to Joyce and her problem, one other way to utilize the same information is essentially to display it on some sort of dashboard. and use it for tracking the topics that people were interested in over time. So this can be used to plan the capacities, also do some reports, and in general give insight on what's going on. Like if you see a sudden raise in service topics, you might have an idea that something is going on, and some service might be broken, which might not be outright apparent. And with that was the last use case that we wanted to go through. And we will now do a quick summary or a wrap up. Let me just sip to make sure my voice can make it till the end. So first we talk about how you can increase your conversion rate with lead prioritization for potential customers and also existing, maybe even more so since you have more data about them, with essentially for cross-sell, upsell. Second use case is where you can reduce onboarding time and staff costs with automatic document extraction. You can automate many of your processes. You can use this to extract information from unstructured text in even in more general ways than just the one we shown. The third is that we save time and staff costs with fraud detection and perhaps even increased a bit the probability to detect the fraud, since the fraud detection people were not overloaded with valid requests, but they were given only a selection of ones that were suspicious. Next, we prevented churn and increased overall NPS for customers with sentiment analysis. And last but not least, we have gained insight into what our customers are talking about, detected cross-sell leads with topic detection. And with that, I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Please type them in chat. So the first question I see here is how detailed model outputs can you expect? If I remember correctly, it was regarding the topic detection use case. So if that's not correct, please type another question. But in the topic detection, it really depends on your use case. Like what kind of topics are you interested in? The key question is actually what topics can make, like which topics, if you knew them and could you detect them, would make the biggest impact on your business. So this is something to have a discussion about and talk about the business as usual that you have currently, and to see where might be the biggest potential impact. Yeah. And with the summaries is a similar thing. It depends on what kind of information you're interested in. Here's a question: how to handle the skewed, unbalanced data sets, for example, in the fraud detection use cases. So it depends a lot. It depends a lot on the particular use case, once again. But one way is to use more prior assumptions, essentially. Instead of just try to fit a model blindly, work with the people from insurance and try to see what are some of the criteria. So as I outlined, training a model on data is not the only way to do it. You can also automate like finding repeating patterns and similar things. So there is a question: can you tell us a bit more about evolving and devolving topics? So this is a very interesting area that we are currently actively researching. There are multiple ways. When you can define your topics ahead of time, when you know all your topics ahead of time, it's quite straightforward. You can see, you can detect the topics over time, and essentially this is quite straightforward. But when you try to detect these automatically, this can be quite challenging because it's essentially hard to find the right segmentation. And we do not currently have like a straightforward answer to this, and we are researching this actively. So if you would like to work on this with us, for sure get in touch. Okay.
Great. And we like to
I'll give
thank
it to both
everyone.
them.
And with the last sort of call to action is if you would be so kind and you could take down our contacts, myself, Bob, or Adams. And if you're not against, let's have a call and let's discuss, how NLP could improve your business if this is what you would like to do. I would appreciate it. So let us know. And we can organize a one-to-one call or call for with your colleagues, for your colleagues as well. On that, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Adam, for a wonderful presentation. Great presentation, and as we had in the chat, info from Lubomir, it's one that really appreciate. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.